Get the funk out of my face. 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 Get the funk out of my face.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to a new edition of Thinking for Free. Yay! Healthcare. I'm going to sum it up, my opinion, really briefly. Like always, take what I say with a grain of salt, but you can trust the man in the striped hat. That at least I've done my homework, and I've come to an honest opinion. Healthcare. They're bickering over $800, $900 billion over the next 10 years. Sounds like quite a bit because most of us have never seen $1 billion in our entire lives. No, I think they have like a $1 billion some currency somewhere in the world now. It's so worth so little. They actually have $1 billion bills. It's crazy. So anyway, 800 to 900 billion over 10 years, about 80 bill a year. A year. For healthcare for hopefully all of us. Let me just give you an idea, since it's hard to imagine what a billion is. Let's just make it relative. Our defense department last year got over $600 billion. That's how much they're budgeting. Just for 1 year. Okay? Now, I'm not saying let's not defend ourselves, but the disparity, spending $600 billion on defense, but bickering over spending $80 billion on our health. You know, the Department of Health and Human Services, they got about $80 billion last year in the budget. You know that thing that none of us Americans like to keep? 12, almost 12, now get this one, drum roll please, almost $12 trillion is our national deficit. That means it's like a credit card bill. Like if we got a big Visa and said 12 bill, trill. Who do we owe this money to? China? Saudi Arabia? Japan? You know, there's a lot of countries. The problem today, folks, do not be fooled. Just think rationally. Is that today the governments of countries and the corporations, the multi-gigantic corporations of the country, are interweaved almost seamlessly. You know, that's why all these stories you read about, like the Blagojevich, the governor in Chicago who got nailed for this pay-to-play thing. I think he actually even used those terms. Surprise, surprise! That's all of politics. That's what politics is today. I mean, there are a few instances. There still are the Dennis Kucinichs, the Ron Pauls, you know, even Barack Obama, who I think is getting shortchanged here. Do you realize that when George W. Bush came into office, he had over like a $300 billion surplus? It's almost like the credit card company coming back to you and say, "Oh, by the way, you have a credit, you know, for we owe you." George Bush, whatever you want to say about him, take all the emotion out of it. By the time he left office, we had nearing a $10 trillion deficit. $10 trillion. Whenever you hear this stuff about bipartisanship, the Congress needs on health care to be bipartisan, Dick Cheney sat over the largest tax cut, I think, in American history and used that process called reconciliation and broke a 50-50 tie in the Senate to give the largest tax cut ever in this country during a time, mind you, that we were waging 2 wars. Never before in the history of this country has a president not raised taxes during a time of war. In other words, who cares who's going to pay for it? Well, this is the attitude we got to cut out of our American habitual culture. Because we all suffer from it. I know I have. Bought many a UFC fight or something on a credit card when I really couldn't afford it. Instant gratification. Let's get beyond it, guys. This country is not only is it salvageable, but it's really downright dastardly what we've allowed Wall Street to get away with. And when I say Wall Street, I mean these companies like Walmart's that literally own towns and get almost all their labor from China or Costa Rica or somewhere like that. Okay? Let's get aboard the positive solutions that people have, but let's not get deceived by all of this distraction. Okay? Almost all the news you will see, mainstream, is worthless. You can get the same information, even better, reported if you read it. Don't give up the power to read it, you know? I was one of the ways I'm serious, one of the ways they just decided to try and crush the civil rights movement. They knew they were dealing with people who were from economically poor background, and a lot of them had been oppressed, so they couldn't read. That's why SNAC, I think it was SNAC, S-N-A, no, SNCC, one of their big things was educating people, teaching them to read. Well, it's one thing to know how to read, but if you don't use it, you lose it. Because I'll tell you something very interesting. You watch how politicians speak. Read those quotes really closely. They use really interesting words. You know, like instead of basically saying something like you and I personally, right, might say in a conversation, oh yeah, I'll dominate you. I'll dominate your life, man. You'll do whatever I tell you to do. That's right. That's right. They'll say something like the word hegemony. Well, America can't keep practicing their hegemony in the Middle East. Why not say the truth in plain language? See, so which is, you know, we want them to be our biatch. So that's what empires are all about. It's about getting other people to do the work, slave labor, and Americans are not happy with losing their quality of living standard, and nor should we. Why would we? We get addicted to it. Habits. But life is fluid, man, right? And right now, I just want you all to look and say, public option, schmoption. Of course we should get the public option. You see what they're doing? They're setting us up for it, the American public. They'll give it to us and make us feel oh so grateful that we can actually go to a doctor without worrying when we're sick. Oh so grateful. Okay? But meanwhile, we'll be spending all this money in Iraq or Afghanistan, and I guarantee you, right? Just go ask 10 people a day, should we still be in either of those countries militarily in such a large fashion? And I'll bet you over 60% will tell you every single day the same thing. No. Don't be afraid to read, folks, because I'll tell you something that happens that's amazing. When you read and commit yourself to learning about a story, first of all, you start to see all of the political speak. You start to see how people like to pass the buck, confuse, distract, all sorts of things. And you can come to a learned opinion, your own opinion, and your own opinion, not Bill O'Reilly's or Alex Jones or someone like that. Nothing more valuable than your own solid, studied-based opinion. Talk about empowerment. Think for free, folks. Think for free. Don't let China and Saudi Arabia become our debtor forever. No answers, your own answers. That's what Thinking for Free is all about. So have a good night, folks. I'm under 10 minutes again. Yahoo! Go Yankees!